Welcome back to the Catapult Effect podcast. In part one, Josee Tremblay shared her powerful three-step delegation framework. Does it need to be done? Does it have to be done by me? And does it have to be done by me now? We also talked about why work-life balance is a myth and how building the right support system at home is just as important as the one you build at work. In part two, we get into the deeper stuff, what chronic stress really does to high achievers as they climb, why humility might be the most underrated tool in your toolkit, and Josea shares a story about trust that every parent and every leader will feel in their gut. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Catapult Effect podcast. I'm Katie Wrigley, neuroscience coach and entrepreneur. This podcast is for high-performing leaders who look capable on the outside, but know the pressure of carrying too much alone. Each week, we explore the internal and external systems that create real ease, from nervous system regulation to delegation and smarter support. If you're ready to build in a way that feels steady and sustainable, you're in the right place.
A harmonious household while you're showing up, and that's you're putting your effort into it. And sometimes you will run into teenagers trauma, and they'll kind of not be receptive to your well-intended type of commentary, and then they'll actually start pushing back, and then that's a little bit of making you uncomfortable because, hey, before they used to listen to me, but now they don't anymore. So it's like a little bit of adaptation. So positive meaning, why am I here? Why I feel uncomfortable with this interaction? Why am I here? I'm here because I want to be a good parent. What does it mean to be a good parent in my mind? Is to be human-centered. What does my child or teenager need at this juncture? And be curious about that rather than maybe falling into, wow, she won't listen to me anymore, and then shutting down the conversations because it feels uncomfortable. So positive meaning is definitely about finding your purpose in whatever interaction you're in, whether it's at work or at home. Then nurturing the actual energy between the two of you and finding ways to de-escalate any kind of maybe conflicting type of interaction is always positive. But then you can't shut down the things that are actually screaming at you. You can't just shut it down because then it's putting it under the carpet and then it's going to resurface in the future. So that curiosity piece then helps you find ways to de-escalate, but without pushing it aside and ignoring it. I've seen us as a family unit being very intentional about not avoiding some of the things that might be uncomfortable. And it has helped us because before I grew up in an environment where we tended to actually not stay too much in areas that were uncomfortable. And I don't know that it served us the best. I think it serves us more if we are able to find the resilience that is needed to be facing the relationship hangups that you have or hiccups that you have. So positive relationship isn't about finding, de-escalating the conflict, but without eliminating or without pushing aside and not considering some of the sources of the conflict. And then you have positive communication, which is obtaining, your best self-feedback, having the ability to be in continuous improvement and learning and growth, and use supportive style and kind words, because people, we're human and we like the positive aspects. So they call it, the old days used to be the sandwich thing where you say something positive, something negative, something positive. I think it's now the science, and you might know more than me about that because I'm not, a cognitive person, scientist in that way. But I think I'm hearing it's 3-1 now. So you need to be 75% very supportive and positive style. And then maybe you can have then some areas, but find areas that are not necessarily pointing at the individual, but more at the facts really helps with that positive communication. And then creating a positive climate. So when you're rushed and you're in between things and you're trying to fit in a difficult conversation, it's never really easy to do that. So park things that might be more difficult and allow yourself enough time to build that gratitude of being together and compassion and all the things that comes with positive climate. So these four things, practicing positive leadership in both your personal life and your work life, really helps bring down that stress that you might have, and kind of gives you gives you a tool that you can go to that might help in a big way.
And for someone who said you didn't understand the science on cognition, like, you did a great job on that. And you pointed to something really important that I want to make sure that we pull into the light even more, is you talk about also acknowledging some of the negative things there, because it can be really easy to shift into toxic positivity. And toxic positivity is where you are completely ignoring and pretending that there's anything negative, any challenge. And that's where people really start to, they don't feel seen and heard, because they feel like they're getting pushed into a positive thing they're not ready to do. And that piece is so important, both so that the positivity is authentic, and gratitude. Oof, that's one of my favorite things. It is such a powerful tool to start to shift the brain around, and people underestimate it a lot. The other thing that makes that so important to deal with all of those things there, all that crap, the negative stuff, is the amount of energy it takes to push that down underneath the surface is immeasurable. And we don't realize how much energy we're losing by keeping all this stuff down until it starts to hit a threshold where we're not sleeping, or we may not have noticed that our coffee consumption doubled or tripled or quadrupled or whatever it may be. There's a little.
Is there an issue with that? No.
Depends on the year. Some years caffeine's great for you, some years it's not. So yes and no, depending. But those are some of the signs that can start to very subtly start to point to, hey, there may be something here I haven't acknowledged. And you're also going to notice, like, just a general, not, I'm trying to think of the word, maybe a very subtle uneasiness, like something just doesn't sit comfortably with you. And that can be the sign of, like, okay, I haven't fully explored this over here yet. I have a little bit more word. Like, I love all this positive stuff over here, and I really need to acknowledge this crap over here just a little bit more, because it's still just not sitting right. There's more pieces, and giving ourselves permission to do that, to allow ourselves to process that out and shift into the positive with the gratitude, with the positive leadership at work and home, like still dealing with that stuff. That is such a big piece to be able to be into that positive area. And it's the part that sucks. So people don't really want to look at that, but it's really, really important. I can't emphasize it enough how important it is to deal with that stuff as it comes up and allow the body to release it as we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's almost like it's a continuous exercise, like in all of our lives. Like it's not something that you can say, okay, I'm done with the bad stuff. Like it's gonna happen. So somehow you need to work at it and continuously work at it so you get out of it, and then it gets easier and easier to deal with it, and there'll be more coming up. So you need to kind of it's almost like sometimes you need to do a bit of catch up, and then once you get to steady state, then you deal with the more subtle emotions, and then it makes it a bit easier over time, but you need to start somewhere. A friend of mine, Chad, says always that you need to actually listen to the subtle emotions that are coming out, and whether they're good. Well, he thinks there's no good or bad emotion. It's all emotions, and it's true. But some of them we like more than others, I think. But, But the ones that you like, as well as the one that you like less, you need to really be on the lookout for those, because they're kind of clues to how maybe your internal nervous system is responding to the environment that you're in.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to I'm actually thinking of my corporate self, and I had already learned from the pattern that I was in to do it differently as an entrepreneur. And so I've really scaled and continue to scale very, very differently. But I want to speak to now to the person who's listening who is very ambitious, who's really getting a lot out of their professional life. And as they're going up the ladder, they may be going up really quickly. They're noticing that stress is getting higher and higher with every step. And I'm thinking of like, I'd been in IT, like I mentioned. And then when I went into cybersecurity for the first 9 months I was in that job, I was in post sales and I loved it. And I wanted to get extra bonuses wherever I could. And if we did after hour installs, we got an extra $500. So, but I over rotated on that. But what it resulted in was because I was so good at that, I actually wound up getting promoted into the sales side and then immediately hit a whole new level of stress because now the sale wasn't complete, which is when I was working before the sale was complete. As long as I didn't do something horrific, chances are everything was going to be fine. Even if it was a tough install, still most of the time, like there were some that were really horrific. I could probably do some more cogno around them. But for the most part, most of them went smoothly or they were challenges that we could get by. But as soon as I started to shift to that sales side, my brain immediately went into hyperdrive and work was the first thing I did. Like I would immediately get up, start checking email as I drank my coffee, and then I would work all the way into the night, even after I was done, like with whatever I was doing that day. I'd continue to check email, continue. And I can't even tell you how many times my mom is like, you are burning the candle at both ends. You need to slow down. But that can be a big driver, especially when we see people like, and in the entrepreneur world, also in the professional world, but especially when it's a female in a male dominated field, that need to perform can get higher and the stress with it gets higher. So what would you say to the person that was like former me, that the higher they're getting in their career, the more stress they get? And so it instead of it like being, oh, I'm getting more success and leaning into that positivity, it's like, I'm getting more success. Oh shit. Now what do I do? Like, what if it all goes away? So what would you say to that person, Josea?
I've doubled my efficiency, but oh no, I have double the work now. So
Yeah.
that's I've heard that before.
Yep.
Yeah, reality is as you get more and more efficient, as you get to know your craft better and better, you will have increasing amount of responsibilities. And as a result, you might have more stress, but you don't have to. The reason that you get more stress is because you don't use some of the tools that now exists. So how do you, maybe the two things I could say is humility is the big thing. Be humble enough to know that you are human and you have your limits. So you need to actually put boundaries out there that allows you to take the 5-minute break that you need. The micro breaks are super in really high stress condition, and you end up being more productive in the long run. And so people kind of, as you said, burn the candle by both ends, but then they don't sleep enough. So you need to have 7 hours of sleep per night. I think studies were showing 7 hours and 13 minutes. So my thing was when I was traveling, if I'm arriving at a location, I always calculate 7 hours and 13 minutes of sleep before I show up to my next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I had canceled meetings because I didn't have 7 hours and 13 minutes of sleep. You do need your brain, and the worst thing that you can do to your frayed nervous system is not give it enough sleep. So sleep is big, and there's different things that people do to cope with stress, like having alcohol, or as you said, coffee, or some people smoke. Like you have different things that you will do to cope with stress, but these things are only short-term stress reliefs, but really in the long term, they really negatively affect your ability to build resilience. And you're going to these because they're easy and they give you that instantaneous jolt of positive, whatever emotional things that would come in. But in the long run, you're actually going down the downward spiral because you're not building the resilience that you need to be successful. So imagine this, you're getting better at your craft, you're getting more responsibilities, but then you're actually using some of the tools that are detrimental to that resilience. So you'll need to maintain resilience. So how do you maintain resilience? Is like good sleep, good even like food and intake and
Yep.
energy intake, but also being humble enough to say, I do need breaks in my schedule to be effective in my day to day and run at the speed that I need to run. And you need to listen. Like, so basically, listen deeply to your internal state. And you can't do that if you don't have good sleep. So, meditation could be a shortcut to being able to regulate that nervous system. I like yoga myself, some kind of physical activities blended into your week really makes a lot of difference. But it takes lots of humility and it takes a lot of help in your surrounding environment. Like the people at home need to be able to support you in getting to the gym, or so you need to have that. It comes back full circle to the things that we were talking about earlier, which is finding the help you need.
Yep.
And when I say you, is like it's going to be different for everyone, and so you're the only gauge as to what help you need. And if you did find help and it doesn't help, then it's not the help you need. So it happened to us. We had a nanny and she came home, and after a few months she was working with us, and my child actually ended up taking the bike with his friend and getting out of the gate and into like pretty into the street and all
Ooh.
that. And I was at work, and it took us about a week, and I said to my spouse, I can't keep her. Like, I can't be at work and don't feel that my children are safe and that she's
Yeah.
going to look after them in the way that I would after them. So we had to make the tough decision, say, this is kind of a barrier of no go. We had to let her go. And we did hire someone else and had different criteria for the new hire. And the new hire was great. And we ended up working with her for like 4 years. And
Oh, wow.
we ended up leaving the country where we were working. And as a result, she wasn't able to work with us anymore. But to this day, she's still one of the best support that we both had, because she was the best. But it went from, I couldn't, within a week, I could not leave my child and feel comfortable going to work, and to the real help that we needed. So this is an example, but when you do have some help, sometimes you realize that they're not meeting and relieving you from being able to actually do your job successfully and lead your life successfully. So you sometimes have to make the tough decision of departing from a certain help that you had, which doesn't meet your needs, to something that is going to be better for you. So it takes humility to recognize that, and it takes humility to recognize your needs, your own internal needs, but having a reflection on that, not just for things that are at work, but also for the things that will influence how well you'll be able to show up at work the next morning. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a really good point. Like the visual you gave, like I don't have kids, but I was like viscerally reacting like, oh my God, he went into the street. Like, oh, like that's every mom's nightmare, right? So trust is broken there. That even though it's still a hard decision, 'cause no one likes to fire someone, no one likes to give bad news. One of the perspectives that's helped me is really like, I'm helping this person learn so that they can do it better next time. And I'm helping myself by doing this as well. And like when it isn't something as important as a child, sometimes we'll allow that to go on a little bit longer because we want to encourage the person to do it differently, and they may not be capable of that. So I love that you made that decision really quickly, like, no, nope, we need someone else. This person is not working for me.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And uh, don't get me wrong. I do see a lot of positivity and positive leadership and encouraging continuous improvement, but you have to actually align on principles when you
Yes.
go in. And there's certain principles that, okay, you can't go below this line, because if you go below this line, then all of a sudden I feel unsafe or I feel uncomfortable to the point where I cannot no longer
Mhm.
hold on to this current state. So the status quo is no longer acceptable to me. So you have to have those lines, those red lines. I gave an example of this. All the way before this red line, there's a whole world of development and self-improvement and things like that, and continuous improvement and feedback loop with the help that you have around you. So you can actually make sure that they adapt to your needs and vice versa, you adapt to their needs. So there's a continuous improvement world above those principles that you can't really break. And so as you said, I think the word trust kind of resonate hard. Well, it trust is exactly what I'm talking about, is like
Mhm.
eventually if you lost that trust, then you can't regain it, or it's very difficult to regain, and it's going to be different for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I had some more questions to ask you, but I want to be cognizant of time and not taking up too much. So, where can people find you, Josea, and where can they buy your book?
Yeah, so my book is on all the platforms like Amazon and Indigo in Canada. We can also find me on Us and Yet, just the handle www Us and Yet, yeah, look it up. It's really for those folks, and not just women, but men and women, trying to navigate dual careers and finding ways that they can relieve some of the pressures that they have and some of the barriers they are seeing, so they don't ramp off and they find a way to continue to pursue their passion together, and they create the work life environment, because everything is life. They create the life that they really aspire to create. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we'll make sure that all of your handles, as well as links to buy your book, are included in the show notes, so people can just go into this episode, go out, grab a copy of Josea's book, and help yourself to find that balance, especially if you're part of a partnership and you're trying. Well, even if you're single, I'm totally going to check out your book. But it's a way to help you balance everything that you're trying to balance in life. And thank
Mhm.
you for joining me today, Josea. Is there anything that you want to say to that listener out there who's still feeling like they're struggling with overwhelm, but maybe having some hope after hearing you?
They should check your services as well. I think I'm gonna actually, we were talking about that offline as like, it's a continuous improvement life. And I'm very fascinated by some of the work that you've done. And that's why it was
Thank you.
really a nice morning for me this morning to be meeting you. So yeah, so I think looking at your own cognitive movement construct and how you can break through some of these things that are kind of under the surface that you haven't really faced is definitely something to explore. So thanks for having me. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for that. I appreciate it. And to the listener out there, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have your choice of so many things to listen to on the internet, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to Josea and I today. And until the next episode, please be well. Thanks for being here on the Catapult Effect podcast. If today's episode supported you, share it with another leader who's ready to create more ease in how they build, and leave a review so more heart-led leaders can find these conversations. You don't have to do everything yourself. When the right systems are in place, inside and out, business gets lighter. Until next time, protect your capacity.